Judd Apatow is walking in the room.
Oh, yes.
Thank God.
I've been waiting for.
Yes, this is it. This is it.
This room used to be so crowded. It's only you that's left, Sam.
I know, it's it. We're slowly everybody's just falling off one by one by one.
It's the Sam channel now. What happened? What happened? What happened while I was gone? That's
I don't know.
the question.
We were actually just talking about that a lot of the other hosts on the channel, I guess everything's in uproar now and people are insecure, and there are people who are legitimately, I believe, think that I'm some kind of evil manipulative mastermind who has designed this all to eventually just become the Sam channel.
You know, this is how it happens. This is how the world works, which is there's a guy, and you don't think he's the guy, and then you realize, wait a second, the last man standing.
Right.
Sam and Donald Trump.
That's it. It's the two of us, and we've somehow taken control. And everybody else, you're right. They don't see it coming. He'll never win. I don't even have to vote. Who's going to do that?
Exactly. What, the guy from The Apprentice is going to be the president?
Right.
Sam is going to get his own channel?
That's never going to happen.
What I find most hilarious is this week, Clay Aiken said that when he was on The Apprentice, it was very clear that Donald Trump did not get to choose who won.
Clay Aiken is now turned on Donald Trump.
Yes, Clay Aiken. And that I find hilarious because we all think, well, clearly he's capable of being the president. He was able to choose the winners on The Apprentice. He doesn't even have the freaking ability to choose on his own who wins each episode of The Apprentice.
So you think the producers are like, no, we can't let this maniac decide who The Apprentice is?
Well, exactly, because on all those shows, there's always like one lunatic, and you would kick off that lunatic week 1,
right?
And that person always gets kicked off like week 9,
right?
Because the producer's like, you can't kick off that psycho. They're the most fun to watch,
right? Gary Busey has to stay.
Yes, exactly, and that's why it's so funny that he was not even given that responsibility. And I agree with that. I agree that the amount of responsibility Donald Trump should have should be less than the ability to choose the winner each week on The Apprentice. He should have less responsibility than that. We shouldn't trust him even with that.
Although I think it was, are you not a Trump guy?
Well, you know, I'm beginning to wonder if I made a mistake.
Yeah, we had Penn Jillette in here a while back, and he was talking about The Apprentice.
He warned everybody, Penn.
He said that, like, on The Apprentice, though, he didn't say that Donald Trump didn't get to pick him, but he did say that sometimes those boardroom meetings would go, like, 4 hours.
Yes,
long.
Everything in TV goes 4 hours.
But it wouldn't be, like, to set up shots. It would be Donald just talking and talking and talking.
Can you imagine? That's why none of those dailies come out.
Yeah.
Forget the fact that some people claim he says racist things, or I'm sure he's talking about women or whatever. Let's assume that's possible. I don't know. But I think we wouldn't elect him president if we just heard him babbling like a madman. Just if we knew what he actually cared to talk about, we wouldn't want him to be the president. Just him talking about his lunch and what he watched on TV would probably have prevented this from happening.
There's this great moment. I watched The Apprentice religiously when
I
it
did
was
too.
on. I was a big fan.
And I didn't watch it because I respected the man. I watched it because he was a lunatic.
Well, yeah, I guess.
I watched it because I found it so funny that he didn't do anything and he would just send his kids and then he would make an impulsive decision which seemed to be wrong.
Right, and mean-spirited.
Or sexist and crazy. I always remember when he had Keisha Knight Pulliam.
From the Cosby Show?
Do you remember she was on?
Yeah. She didn't last long, did she?
What happened was that people were raising money for charity, and Trump kept going, why didn't you call Bill Cosby and ask him for money? Why didn't you call Bill Cosby? And she's like, I don't have that kind of relationship with him. And at the time, we didn't know.
Right.
Or we were just beginning to find out. I think we thought this had been taped before the Cosby scandal broke, but was airing after.
Right. I think that's right.
And it was so clear that she was terrified of Cosby. And who knows why? Who knows what the levels of it are? Who knows what she understands or doesn't understand? But regardless, really terrified of Cosby to the point of her eyes welled up with tears. And you could tell that Trump, on some level, knew. He knew that this was her wound, whatever that wound was. And he kept going like, but why didn't you call Cosby? You should have called Cosby if you wanted to make more money. And so he got her to break. She broke on TV.
Which is, he knows good TV. He knows how to make television.
He knows how to make moments by being confrontational. I mean, he's a strange man who knows that if you just stir some shit up, people like to watch that more than boring stuff.
Right.
It's hard to say if it's great television. He's like,
We watched it.
If he wasn't the president, he's a funny guy to observe if he didn't ruin your life and take away your health insurance.
I don't know if you remember when he did this, but I always remember him doing this, and it just, now that he's president, I get reminded of it all the time in my head. You could tell it was a line that he loved, and so he needed to leave it left in the show because it had nothing to do with the episode.
Yes.
But you remember the episodes would be set up where he would meet the contestants outside to explain what their task would be. So this one episode, it's in New York, and they're on the roof, and it's the winter. And no, it's not the winter, actually. It's like April. Mm-hmm. And he looks at everybody. He goes, hey, how many of us are cold today? And like some of them raise their hand, and then he just like leans in, and he goes, so why does everybody keep saying global warming is a thing?
Oh my gosh, that's on The Apprentice?
Yes, it is. It's not cut. It was part of the episode.
He's so mad that he has to have ventilation in his buildings. It's so expensive to have proper ventilation that he doesn't want to believe in global warming. I want to say one thing before I forget. I'm going to be at the Wilbur in Boston on July 24th.
Wow.
And I'm doing 2 shows there. The second show is for charity. It's for after-school arts programs for high schools. July 24th.
And the first show is for you.
Go to juddapatow.com for tickets. Second show is for charity. Come on, Boston. It's for after-school programs. We need children to learn things about art so that they are kind, compassionate people.
Right, who can draw.
Who can draw, who can think.
Yes.
Creative people are kind people. So, juddapatow.com. I'm at the Wilbur on the 24th. I'm going to be in Rhode Island that week as well.
You're a gigging comic.
I'm a gigging comic. And then The Big Sick comes out nationwide today.
So let me ask you, as you're promoting this stuff, because I want to talk to you a lot about your comedy and everything, that because I just think it's amazing what it's turned into. But when you're talking about Trump as much as you are on Twitter, and inevitably it comes up in interviews and stuff like that, and you take this very, very, very clear stance, and to the point where it's not even like, well, if you ask me about it, I'll tell you. Like, you are extraordinarily vocal to the point where, like, you can look at, I'm sure, any show you go on, a bunch of the listeners are like, well, fuck that guy. Even though everything you've ever done, they may be a fan of. Do you ever go like, maybe I should?
No, I don't.
Because
this is the moment in life when we're supposed to say no.
But
that's it. What are we going to do? I mean, maybe if I couldn't pay my rent, I would be scared.
But not even like...
I can pay my rent, Sam.
Not even...
I can pay my rent. So what am I going to do? It's funny because we're always... learning about history, and we go, why didn't somebody do something?
Yeah.
Why didn't somebody say something? And we're clearly in a situation with a corrupt president who's not very smart, who his interests are confused. That has nothing to do with whether or not you're a Republican or a Democrat. You could be a Republican and think the world would work better with less government and lower taxes, and maybe you're against abortion. I respect people who have those opinions, whether I agree with them or not. I think that this man is not capable of doing the job.
Right.
And I don't trust him. I think he is a liar. We know he's a liar. I think that we should all be very concerned with how his brain works. And it's very scary, and I think that he shouldn't be the president. It's as simple as that.
But do you ever, not even about money, because of course you can pay your rent, but in terms of
that's a big driver for people speaking up, because there are people who are just like, well, then I'm not going to your movie.
Right.
Well, I don't know. I'm not at the point where that my terror about that is the driver.
Yeah.
I care about people. I love everybody. I want everyone to be happy. I want people to live in a safe world. I would like it that if people are sick, they can pay to go to the doctor. My mom had ovarian cancer. I remember her going through those insurance forms, wondering if this new experimental treatment, which might save her life, would be covered.
Right.
There's nothing worse in the world. And so, when you have somebody who puts that at risk for tens of millions of people, we all have to go, hey, slow down.
You're right. But on a not as big level, on a smaller level that's just for you, like because Kumail, who's obviously the star and
Yes.
writer and everything with The Big Sick, is also outwardly political about his opinions. If I was creating something, a part of me would want to know that I could count on an audience to go in unbiased. Like, I just want to know what you think of this movie, and a lot of what's going on is not allowing people.
Everybody's
to do
got
that.
an opinion,
Yeah.
John Lennon wasn't pro-Nixon.
No, he was not.
And he wasn't sitting around going, I'm not going to speak out against the Vietnam War because I need to sell more units of Imagine. It just didn't happen. This is what we all need. We're all citizens.
Right.
We're allowed to have our opinions, and we're allowed to share them. And there are people I don't agree with, and I still can enjoy what they do creatively as long as they're not a lunatic.
Right.
I mean, I can't say I'm running to James Woods movies at this point.
But to be fair, I don't know if you would have been doing that anyway.
Well, I love the onion fields, but I feel like some of what he does is intentionally hurtful.
Right.
I'm sure he doesn't perceive it that way, but I think there's a certain amount of insensitivity that people express because they're passionate, and I understand it. We're all scared, and so we all cross the line, and I find it understandable. But I do think people need to speak up, and if people really believe in getting rid of health insurance for millions of people, I think they should speak up also in a healthy way. That's what our democracy is based on.
Yes.
That we're all supposed to have our opinions and we're allowed to share them as long as we don't hurt each other and as long as...
People forget that, though, these days. People don't feel like on either side that the opposing person should have equal footing in terms of speaking.
I have no issue with anyone saying anything as long as they don't threaten people.
Yeah.
I just don't like being lied to. I from either side. I don't like when people say I never met with the Russians and suddenly there's tons of meetings.
Right.
I don't like that. I don't like that Jeff Sessions did that or Kushner or Don Trump Jr. or whoever else did it. I feel like that's my concern. I totally respect you if you think the economy will work better if I have lower taxes. I may not agree with that as an approach, but that's great, but I don't want you to bullshit me. And I don't like just the tearing down of all of Obama's policies just because they were Obama's policies.
Because it's out of spite instead of actually figuring out what we're doing here.
No, they said the other day in the news that Donald Trump didn't want to do a bunch of things with ISIS because that was the Obama approach. But Obama had great generals. He had, a lot of the same people that Trump works with. And there's only so many ways to go at these things. So when you're trying to get rid of things just to prove you're different.
Yeah.
That I find to be very scary. And I don't trust corporations. I mean, corporations want to make more money, and if they can make more money polluting a stream, they will do it.
Yeah.
And that's what people don't understand. That's what regulations are about. And sure, we don't need ridiculous regulations, but just know companies will fuck you over for cash because companies aren't people. It's just that they're large groups of people.
Is this something we've learned in Hollywood?
Of course,
yes.
We've learned this. This is why you'll get certain product because people are looking for money, and this whole idea of like let the rich people be richer and we'll take care of you.
Yeah,
just give me all the money and I might give you a little bit. Like I don't believe in that general theory that Exxon will hook us up. These companies will pretend there's no global warming. They'll do anything that doesn't cost them more money, even if it kills you. And it's funny that Trump found a way to say, I'm not the elite. He's the definition of the elite.
But he doesn't speak like the elite.
Yeah, because he's an idiot who doesn't know how to read a book.
Oh.
And so, yeah, I'm like one of you. It's a ridiculous point of view. And I'm worried that people have been manipulated into believing it. And I hope people don't get hurt before this is over, in the sense that you have a man making a lot of decisions that affect people. This insurance thing, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who have had that moment where they say, I can't go to that doctor on that day because my insurance doesn't cover it.
But what about all the people that say that Obamacare was a lie and that the premiums have gone up and they can only pick one provider? And
I think
I
a lot of that is very valid. I think that there's problems, but we all have to remember that Mitch McConnell said it publicly. my strategy is to make sure that Obama gets nothing accomplished.
Right.
So what should have happened is Obamacare was passed, and then we should have spent the next 6 years fine-tuning it.
Working on it.
And so when you have the Republicans saying, we're not going to fix anything, they want it to not work because that gets them elected. That's evil. Mm-hmm. That is truly evil. And I do think people were misled in some aspects about Obamacare, and that's how they got it passed. I think it was terrible that they did that. But this is what we have, and we should fix it. And tearing it down just so Obama never existed, it's just going to hurt a lot of people.
Are you surprised at what politics has done to some comedians? Like, for instance, I think Amy Schumer's been affected a lot because of the political climate. I mean, I remember Amy Schumer kind of being universally beloved, and then seemingly out of nowhere, there was this huge backlash against her.
I think that has a little bit more to do with women, is that there's a lot of insecure men that have trouble with brilliant, strong women. Mm-hmm. And so you see that sometimes with people like Amy or Lena Dunham.
Lena Dunham the same way.
Who speak up and are political. But what are they fighting for, really?
Yeah.
I mean, they're fighting for women to be equal. That bothers you. It bothers you that they think we should have sane gun laws.
Did you have any idea when you were getting into this, when you were starting like projects with Amy and Lena, and like just finding funny women or men and putting them on, getting their projects made, that it would become kind of the political war that it has?
I didn't, but the whole country's become that.
Yeah.
I'm proud of them. I think they're amazing. And if anybody out there knew them, they would be their best friends. Mm-hmm. They would love them. They're so smart and so funny. And it takes balls to stand up and say, I believe in this. And you don't have to agree with them. But it takes a lot of courage, and you put a lot of things at risk when you fight for things. And what are they fighting for? They actually are fighting for you. Mm-hmm. And so some people don't like that. But I also think it has to do with people being insecure. I think that people get insecure about strong women, and I think you could write college papers about the psychological issues that would make anyone have an issue with them, because they couldn't be funnier or cooler, and their positions are just very, simple and sane. Yeah.
I mean, that's true. You talk to guys all the time that never want to date a woman that's funnier than them, because that's the thing, right? That's the one thing that you have.
I get it.
Right.
I've made the mistake of marrying a woman who is way funnier than me. Sometimes we both do talk shows, and we'll be promoting something, and I'm on Fallon, and she's on Colbert, and she's so much better than me.
She is.
She has so much more charisma. She's faster, and it hurts. I'm not going to say it doesn't hurt.
Right. So you watch. If only I had. When was the point that you refound your love for stand-up or got back into it as a real thing? I in my head, I feel like it was when you were doing Funny People, and that kind of seemed like it got the sparks going again.
I think so. I had to do a little stand-up to write jokes for Adam and Seth. So I got on stage not too many times, maybe a dozen times, just to figure out what they would say. Mm-hmm. And I did a show at Just for Laughs in Montreal called Apatow for Destruction, where I had all the people who do stand-up who are in my movies on the show. So it was Seth and Ken Jeong and Craig Robinson and Russell Brand and Charlene Yee. And it was so much fun that I think it reignited my interest in doing stand-up. Speaking of which, I'm at Just for Laughs this year in Montreal.
We'll be there too.
And I am doing 5 shows there, 4 of which I'm taping for Netflix.
Wow.
So you can go to apatow.com, juddapatow.com, and come see me.
So you're getting a Netflix
tape
special?
The special, yes.
That's amazing.
Well, it was my turn. My turn. I'm also, where else am I going to be? Just I could tell you guys, I'm in Rhode Island. Let me see. Providence. Columbus Theater, July 25th, if you want to see me. If you're in Rhode Island.
Is there something like, is it a romantic thing to be able, because you don't have to perform stand-up. You could live your life in the big studios of Hollywood now.
I could hide in my house.
You don't have to do anything, really.
Enormous hedges.
Yeah. Do you like the idea of like getting down back to the base level of show business, where it's you and a microphone and your audience, and it's just purified?
That's all I ever wanted to do. Everything else has been just a terrible distraction. When I first started, all I wanted to be was a comedian. I started doing stand-up when I was 17 at Eastside Comedy Club on Long Island. I used to work at Governor's on Long Island, and then I went to college at USC and started doing stand-up out in L.A., and I did it for 7 years. I probably burnt myself out. I was so obsessed. But I just kept getting better writing work, and it paid so much better, and I was hungry, and I couldn't afford to live on my stand-up money. And then I created the Ben Stiller Show with Ben.
I was going to ask what the project was that removed you
That
from...
pulled me out of it, because it was 20 hours a day for a year. And there was no time to go to a comedy club. And then when the show was over, I got offered a job working at the Larry Sanders Show and at The Critic, the John Lovitz animated show.
Of course, I love The Critic.
And then I was just tired. And then I thought, maybe the universe doesn't want me to do it.
Yeah.
And then when I was working with Amy Schumer on Trainwreck, she just seemed to be having so much fun. I came to see her at the Comedy Cellar, and I thought, why am I alone in a room all the time? And this seems like so much more fun. And I think it's a way to stay connected to people. It's very easy to lose your way and get all crusty and unfunny. And,
Totally.
And when you talk directly to people every night, you get a sense of what people are thinking about and what they find funny. And I think it's helped my writing on girls and love and crashing, just that I'm more connected to people.
Well, at what point was Heavyweights? Heavyweights, I love Heavyweights. But what point was in that thing was Heavyweights?
We did Heavyweights around 94 when I was writing at the Larry Sanders Show, and I wrote it with Steve Brill, who directed it. And, looking back, it was just so much fun. We took over a summer camp for a few months. Kenan Thompson was one of the kids.
Yeah, of course.
And we knew it at the time. We were like, this kid's insanely funny. I have such memories of going to a minor league baseball game, or like the Braves, the minor league Braves team with Kenan, and just thinking, this is the funniest kid I've ever seen.
Really?
And Sean Weiss was so funny, and Aaron, and Feig was in that movie, Paul Feig.
Yeah, of course he was.
He played the skinny counselor who used to be fat, and Stiller was the bad guy. And this was before Something About Mary or any of that stuff.
And he's brilliant. I mean, honestly, it's pretty clear. You watch Dodgeball, and you're like, that's Tony Perkins.
Yes, he's doing a variation. I think they have the same logo.
Yeah.
And it's just such a funny character. But he also did that character on the Ben Stiller Show as a guy who taught exercise classes.
I see.
So I think it's a malleable character and voice. And we had so much fun. And then the movie came out, and Disney didn't know what the hell it was. You have to remember, it was a Disney movie.
I watch that now because it's still like, even I'm 33, and it's still not only watchable in terms of it being 2017, but in terms of me being 33, I can just watch, and it's like it doesn't feel like I'm watching a weird kids movie.
Yeah, it is, and it's a dark movie.
It's very dark.
And back then, Disney didn't know what they were doing. They weren't nailing their live action kids stuff, and it was a strange time, and we were lucky enough to get to make it. And then when we showed it to them, they just looked at us like, what is this? And it didn't do great in the box office, but oddly, it's a lot of people's favorite movie from their childhoods.
Yeah. Are you working on anything right now that you're writing, directing? Because it seems like you're a little bit more focused on finding kind of great comedians and turning their lives into movies.
Yeah, I was supposed to make a movie this year, and it fell apart. And now I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. But I've been having so much fun working on Love on Netflix.
Yeah.
And working with Pete Holmes on Crashing on HBO. And Crashing is so fun. Last night we were shooting at Ben's Pizza next door to the Comedy Cellar.
Of course,
and the Lucas brothers were there.
Oh, I love the Lucas brothers.
And it's great to just have a little world where you can invite all your friends to act in it.
Yes.
Because it works. You're like, hey, there's Jim Norton. Let's chuck him into it. Or, hey, Jeff Ross happens to be walking by. We'll throw him in this scene. And we're about to do a big episode with Bill Burr we're excited about.
It's awesome.
And people have really responded to the show. And Pete's so easy to work with. He's so funny and such a good writer that we're really thrilled that we're getting to do a second season.
It's a really good show, and I think what makes it work and what's made a lot of your movies about stand-up work is that you are able to make things that are true to stand-up. It's not some weird caricature of what people think stand-up might be like. Is Artie coming back? Because, I mean...
Artie is coming back.
He is coming back.
The great thing about Artie on our show is Artie just plays himself. So no matter what shape Artie's in, it's appropriate to the show. We don't go, Artie's having a rough week, we're not going to use him. We just write it into the show.
Yeah.
But Artie, I guess, had pneumonia and had to have a procedure. And he was at the Cellar the other night, and I heard he was hysterical and looked great. And so we're about to shoot a couple episodes with Artie.
Do you worry about Artie? Because like he is so great on the show.
I always worry about Artie. We love him, and he's hysterical. He is a brilliant actor, and he's also a very smart writer. When we improvise and talk about stories, he's got great ideas. This is a ridiculously talented person who's very sweet. You know, when he gets in trouble, he's really only hurting himself. And so we all support him and root for him to stay healthy and strong and sober. And, he definitely has a struggle we're all familiar with.
Right.
And, we want the best for him, and we'd do anything for him.
So you've got Love, which is based on somebody's story. You've got Crashing, which is obviously Pete Holmes. You've got The Big Sick, which is Kumail. You've got Trainwreck, which is Amy Schumer. When you're doing stand-up now, I would imagine it's impossible for you to get by without a comic coming up to you and being like, Judd, I don't know if you've heard my story, but if you have a second.
It doesn't happen that often, honestly. It doesn't happen that often. And very few people have a story like the story of The Big Sick. It's a crazy true life story that's really funny and beautiful and weird. And as soon as I heard it, I thought that would make an amazing movie. But not that many people have that good a story.
Yeah, and it's what's great about The Big Sick, and I think it's you could say it's a string around most of your comedies, is that it is like the kind of boy meets girl rom-com, but it's such a twist on the story, and even culturally, like you're not beat over the head with the fact that this person comes from a different culture. But when I'm watching it, I realize like we've not heard the perspective of somebody coming from Pakistan before in America. Like like we're sitting here and like it's this sort of sociological lesson, but it's just this dinner table conversation that you're like, I have not seen this before in this way.
Well, I'm always interested in just something I haven't seen.
Yeah.
So it's not like I thought, I've got to make a comedy with Muslims now or people from Pakistan. What I think is no one's done something and it's fascinating, and let's do something that isn't hacky. It's just new terrain. It's like doing a movie with a lot of hilarious women with bridesmaids.
Right.
It was like, it's not like I thought, oh, this would be great for women to do. I just thought, here's terrain that has not been used up. Yeah. And I'm really proud of the movie, and I'm proud that it shows the perspective of people from Pakistan and immigrants. And Kumail is so sweet and so funny, and it humanizes people that I think are not given that opportunity, to show themselves in their lives and their perspectives. So in that sense, it's become a little bit political, but we never made it for that reason. We made it because it was a great story, and it was just interesting, to hear about a guy whose parents expected him to marry the woman that they chose.
Because you don't even think that, what's it called, marriage is happening in America, like.
And it is happening there.
Arranged marriage, like you don't think arranged marriages happen. That's like something from a villain in a Disney cartoon.
Exactly, and it's happening in probably 30 or 40% of the world is about arranged marriages. And so to me, it's a comedic situation.
Yes.
How do you get out of having to do an arranged marriage if you fall in love with someone else? And then the cultural things are there, but it's a funny situation. And it's also a unique situation to be in a relationship with someone who has to be put in a coma, and then you have to hang out with their parents.
Yeah.
And which could be funny or the most unfunny thing in the world, but when it's Ray Romano and Holly Hunter, it becomes this incredible emotional relationship that's also hysterical, because Ray, man, is he funny
brilliant.
in this.
He's brilliant in the movie, and it's not like Ray Romano funny that you're used to. Like, he's not playing Ray Romano. He's really playing this role, and he's funny in a way that I don't think we've seen Ray Romano do before, which is what you want out of a movie, I think.
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited. I was on the HBO Young Comedian special with Ray Romano.
I was going to ask you what your connection is, because I feel like there have been Ray Romano connections and references. I was talking to Travis this morning. I was like, because that line in 40-Year-Old Virgin,
yes.
when he's like, everybody loves Raymond, that's just a good show.
Yeah.
Like that, sticks, that has stuck with me since the movies come out. And then, and then you see him again in Funny People when Eminem's yelling at him, and you see, and I'm like, what is this Ray Romano?
Which is Paul Rudd says, marriage is like an episode of Everybody Loves Raymond, but without the funny part, or something like that. And I've always thought that Everybody Loves Raymond was one of the greatest shows ever on TV. It is so funny, and if you've if you're married or in relationships, you really get how they nailed everything. And I was always blown away by it and proud of Ray. So for the first few years, I just referenced it. It's a running joke that I would, no matter what, reference Everybody Loves Raymond. And then at some point, when we were doing Funny People, we asked him to be in it. And then that day, Eminem's there, and we were improvising with Eminem. And then it just occurred to us it would be funny if he just starts getting really mad that Ray is looking at him. And he starts screaming at him. And what was funny was Eminem didn't know who Ray was. He literally had never, not only not seen the show, had never heard of the show.
Really?
Which I love, because what is he watching? What does Eminem watch all day that he could miss 7 years of Everybody Loves Raymond?
That's like not knowing what Seinfeld is. That's like...
And then Ray was like, so the joke here is that you guys don't think I could defend myself? And so when we were casting the Big Sick, I just had an instinct from working with Ray on Funny People that he's just a killer.
Yeah.
And I had seen Holly Hunter when I was on a college tour with my daughter. We went to Carnegie Mellon and we visited an acting class, and she was there listening to kids do monologues and then giving them notes. And I watched her for 3 hours help teach this class. And so when we were considering who to play these parts, I just thought, I think the universe wants it to be Holly Hunter. That's why I saw that. And then we thought, is that a good couple? Does that match up? Wow, that is the weirdest, greatest idea of a couple.
It makes the friction that pops up like even better.
Yes, it becomes hysterical, and they're not getting along great. So that's also one of the interesting parts of the movie is Ray and Holly Hunter are married, and their daughter gets sick, but they weren't getting along when this happened. So they also have the tension of their ongoing marital problems, even though they're in a hospital.
That's what I love about your movies, and it probably says a lot about your personal life that married couples never really get along that well. But I want to ask you real quick, because you have to go on to your next interview. Do you have are you grateful? Are you bitter? Is it a chip on your shoulder? Like, what is your attitude when you do something like Crashing or whatever you're doing? It seems like your attitude of getting people that you like and funny people around you and just doing stuff with them. It's always been that way. Now you're ridiculously successful, and most of what you do becomes very successful. You were doing this before, and you had fans like me or critics that liked things like Undeclared and Freaks and Geeks, but this was your strategy back then.
It just didn't work for a while.
It wasn't clicking.
Well, I'm glad it clicked. There was a moment, I remember I was walking around the Sony lot, and I bumped into Ben Stiller, and everything I had done had failed for a while. And Ben just went, man, you're really due for a hit. And luckily, I was able to collaborate with Adam McKay and Will Ferrell on Anchorman.
Yes.
And I think when that succeeded, it really opened the door for everything else for me. Because when you don't have any hits, people question all your choices.
Right. What would you know? You don't have any hits.
Exactly. And as soon as you have it, people trust you. And then as a result of getting trust, you could do better work because people aren't interfering in the same way.
Right.
And so that changed everything. So I'm very excited that people are doing good work, and I'm just trying to find people that are fun to collaborate with, like Paul Rust on Love and Pete Holmes on Crashing, and it's exciting. And I was nominated for an Emmy yesterday.
Congratulations
for my Dwight Gooden, Daryl Strawberry.
Oh yeah, we didn't even get to talk about
documentary
that. I want to
from 30 for 30.